Hi, welcome back to another episode of In Reality, wherein we feature different stories and experiences of people in the BPO industry. In today's episode, our guest is one of my previous trainees, and I'm very proud of what he has achieved in his career now. You will truly be inspired with his story. He has so much insights to share with us, especially now that he's working in the manufacturing field of the BPO industry, and it's quite a different kind of job for him now because he's assisting business owners and not, the usual customers that you're directly speaking with if you're a customer service specialist. So I think you'll really gain some new insights from this conversation and a whole lot of tips and advice. Let's go ahead and meet our guest for today. All right, everyone, welcome back to this episode. Let's welcome our guest for today. Say hello to Ivan. Hi, Ivan.
Hi, Rhea. Thank you so much for having me, and hi everyone who are watching Rhea's YouTube channel. I think it's going big. it's a big channel for everyone who's trying to learn about the BPO industry or the call center industry in general.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. And it's true, thanks to our online community with their never-ending support, they keep watching all the videos on the channel. So I think that this one is another new insight from you that our viewers can learn from. So let's start with a bit about your background. I'd like to know more about how you reach this point in your career, how you started, maybe touch on your first job application until now wherein you're working as a trainer.
Okay, I think that's a long trip down memory lane.
Yes.
But I'll try to shorten that down within maybe 5 minutes. So generally, I am a relocator. So I relocated here in Cebu. I think that was 10 years ago, back when, companies used to import applicants from different provinces. I'm from Mindanao, and we had what do we call that? We had a job fair near our area, and that's how I heard of the very first company I joined. And I never knew, I never thought of what my life would have been if I hadn't taken that opportunity. Coming from a financially challenged or disadvantaged background, I never knew what it's going to be like if I never joined the BPO industry, if I never attended that job fair and got lucky, got hired, and moved here in Cebu, 10 years ago. So I started out in a BPO company. I think one of the pioneers here in Cebu, if I'm not mistaken. It got acquired maybe 2 or 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And when I started out, I was in retail banking. So I was an agent, taking calls, assisting customers, and I was an agent for I think 1 year and 6 months before I started my journey as a process trainer, or some people may call that, training analyst, training specialist. There's a plethora of names for that position in this industry. And what inspired me to become a trainer was actually an experience I got when I was handling a call. One good thing about that account I was assigned to was in secret. I think the leadership, training leadership, they actually listen to the calls of their agents. I received a commendation. I think that was the vice president of training. When I was reading, I forgot the disclosure, but that disclosure was quite long. I think you're familiar with that. That disclosure was quite long. It's difficult. There's a lot of words, big words, too technical for customers to understand. And what I did was, I told the customer this is going to be a long disclosure, but it's required. So if you have questions along the way, just let me know and I'll explain that. So, I got a recommendation, or sorry, commendation from that. And, that's what inspired me to join the training team. I never knew that was part of the job, as a trainer. Being you as one of my first people I've encountered in
Yes.
the company, since you were also my product trainer when I joined the company. And for someone like me who's from the province, English was never my second language.
Mm.
Um, Barely spoke that language, maybe quite a few times in school. But the what's that? The quirkiness, and the nuances of how a native speaker would speak that language is a lot different than how we do it today. So that
Yeah.
was very interesting. That was a very interesting experience for me. Quite a bit challenging. I don't have a background on
Mm.
finance.
Mhm.
Um, that was never my course. I think I'm thankful with the help I received from
Mm.
training team, from my supervisors along the way, from the SMEs to everyone around me, especially with tenured agents. We get to sit side by side with.
Yeah,
Um,
I did not know that inspiration that you had, the commendation, but that was really good. It was a good start, I think, for you. And to just like what Ivan mentioned, he was one of my trainees, and that was also my peer trainer days. I felt that that time you were the quiet one, and then I know that there was one time when I asked a question, and because I really remember this, and you were sitting right in front of me, but I did not really call you that time. But then all of a sudden you raised your hand, and I was like, "Oh, okay, Ivan." So I was so happy that you actually raised your hand and volunteered to answer. That's what I remember during our training days. And like it's so amazing that you mentioned that when you started you did not really like speak the English language that well because of your background. But I'm so proud that look at you now, you're really like speaking the language so well, and even being part of the training team. I think that that's a very life changing story for you that a lot of our viewers would also be inspired with, right? So right now you're working as a trainer in a manufacturing industry, also outsourcing, right?
yes.
And you tell us more about your role in your company, like what do you do and what is your day to day like?
So the industry I'm with is technically more on the aftermarket parts side. So when
Mm.
we talk about aftermarket parts servicing, it's like when customers buy an equipment and something goes wrong with that equipment. Most of the time, maybe you know, a part got busted, maybe a few are missing, glass broken, or stuff like that. And that's where technically we gravitate on for the industry we're servicing. So it's a business to business servicing group. So we're
Mm.
not dealing with end users um,
Mm.
or the basic customers we typically service in the industry. And my day to day tasks are quite different from what a traditional trainer would do
Mm.
in a BPO setup. Um, since most of the time, trainers in the BPO industry are already given with training materials, quite extensive training materials
Yeah.
that they teach when they train employees. But for our environment, it's kind of different because we have to create these training materials out of the manuals or reference documents that
Mm.
we currently have. So it was a challenging experience for me, but that is also a learning opportunity
Yes.
um, that I was always looking forward to.
Yes.
When I was doing my first few years as a trainer, way back in my first company,
Mm.
um, I never thought about creating the manual
Mm.
because most of the time they just give you the manual, right? And then you
Yes.
you just teach off or preach from the manual itself.
Right.
But sooner or later, I realized, why don't I try to look for a job that allows me to grow my career from just training off the manual. Instead, I'm now doing, or I'm now creating the manual that people use. I get to experiment on different, teaching methodologies, teaching principles, most especially with, instructional design. How do we design a module was a very interesting topic that I kind of explored along the way when I got into the current industry that I'm working on. And aside from that, I also do quality evaluations. Since throughout the years of working in the industry, I felt like I think I should try to explore, the different support areas in the BPO rather than isolate myself in training. So when I moved out of my first company, I actually did some quality analyst role, where I just listened to calls, transactional calls, and I took that experience as an add-on to my skills as a trainer. And I think it's an important message that we send
Yeah.
through the community.
Yeah.
You don't just isolate yourself from
True.
a specific servicing area, but instead you also try to explore the different support groups in
Yeah.
in that in that field.
Yeah, I like that. That's a learning point, I believe, because a lot of um, a lot of our viewers might think that when they enter the BPO industry, it's only limited to taking calls, assisting customers.
Yes.
But the truth is, you can really explore different departments, different aspects of the business, like what you did. And I'm so glad that you did that because it's such a nice way to grow and develop in the industry. Like you're not just stuck in one place. Like you said, why would you isolate yourself in just one place when there's still so much out there that you can learn inside the industry itself? And I think that growing is not just moving up or getting promoted to the next level. It's also like moving to a different department, like you said, maybe in the QA department or who knows, maybe HR, right? So that's a really nice message as well. And as you've mentioned, you're now in the manufacturing industry, and we both started in the banking industry, retail banking. That includes online banking with claims and credit cards. Do you feel that there is a difference with the way you handle your customers? Although you've mentioned earlier that with your current industry, you're really assisting businesses. So it's quite different, and I think it's interesting for our viewers because a lot of them may think that, when I get to the BPO industry, I'm just going to assist customers. Essentially, these businesses that you're assisting are also your customers, but they are business owners. So you will have to handle them differently, right? So what have you observed are the differences between assisting like the customers of a certain company versus assisting business owners in your case right now?
Now, in my case, and I think this is the most interesting part,
Hmm.
customer service is the same language all throughout. So
True.
aside from the manufacturing industry I was, exposed to, I also had other dibs or other experiences before
Mm-hmm.
that dealt with customer experience or customer service. And all throughout, the language is still the same. The culture may differ,
Mm.
especially when you're jumping from one industry to another, um, or maybe depending on the region your customers are located. Maybe if you're
Yeah.
dealing with Americans, um, you will have to tailor the customer experience the way how um, Americans see it. If you're dealing with maybe, let's say, uh, British,
Mm.
Australians, different regions, then you will have to tailor fit that experience on how their culture works,
Yeah.
how they see customer service is for their community.
Mm.
And for the industry I'm in, while it's the same, um, the focus is quite different. If you're
Okay.
working in a telco account or the banking account where you're typically restricted to the procedures set by the company.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Customer service plays an important role because that's where you connect with customers, help them understand, um, and establishing the human element of that
Yeah.
relationship. rather than just by telling them, that's how it works.
Mm.
That's a no, sir. No, you're
Right.
not gonna. We're not gonna do that for you. That's a no. We don't have that process here, so
Yeah.
we don't want that in a customer centric environment,
Mm.
especially if you're dealing with end users. On the business side, however, while customer experience or customer service uses the same language,
Mm.
the focus becomes extremely different because most of the time for business to business, you're speaking with employees of this company A, who may be purchasing some items from your company, or maybe they're
Mm.
trying to um, purchase some parts for their customers. So the human connection is still there in the aspect of customer service,
Yeah.
but you don't really need to spend a ton of effort in connecting with them because
Okay.
for these customers, don't waste my time. Let's just jump to the real thing, real deal.
Mm.
I appreciate that you're being nice, you're being friendly, but what I want is to get this thing done because this
Oh.
is not the only thing I have on my list. I also have a lot of other
Yeah.
stuff on my plate. I'm gonna be very happy if the interaction is straightforward
Mm.
yet friendly and professional.
Mm. Okay. Yeah,
So
that's very
that's
interesting.
how we can picture that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it's more of like there's a transaction going on, but you also don't want it to be super transactional. Of course, there's the human element to it, which I like
Yes.
that you mentioned. Customer service language is the same all throughout, but it just differs in, let's say, the culture or maybe the industry that you're in. But the basics of customer service are still the same. So yeah, I think that's a new learning for our viewers out there who might not
Yeah.
have had any idea, with when it comes to assisting business owners or employees of businesses. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I also want to share this experience that you've had. I know that with this company you were sent to the U.S. Was this for your training, and how did you choose you? I think that's one of one of the things that probably most employees are also thinking of when they're in the company, like, will I have this kind of opportunity, or when will I have this, so can you tell us more about that? I think that's really an exciting time of your life.
That was very interesting. And that was
Yeah.
very exciting as well. When I did the interview, the first question that was asked to me was, do you have a passport?
Oh,
And I
okay.
never had a passport
Okay.
around that time. So
Mm.
saying, being transparent, being honest and saying, I actually don't have a passport yet. Um, and a US visa, of course, because that comes after that. You need to get your US visa.
Yeah.
So I had to process that. And what's great is when you bring the value. I think I'll gravitate first on what you can bring to the company, and
Okay.
then I'll talk about the experience with that,
Yes, yes.
because I think this is very important for uh, applicants who are trying to get hired.
Yeah.
You don't really talk about your background, your achievements, but instead, I think it's important you focus more on the value that you bring to the company.
Mm.
Either you are a technical specialist, customer service specialist, a trainer, or any other different roles you're applying for. I think you need to showcase the value that you can bring to the company, because at the end of the day, they will look at the value that you
Mm.
are bringing to the company, rather than the experience that you bring. So, experience and
Right.
value are two different things. You
Yeah.
may have the, experience, let's say 10 years of experience in customer service, but the way you do your job is just so,
Mm.
just meeting the minimum requirements, or even below the minimum requirements. So that doesn't bring any value to the organization.
Mm.
Instead, I think it's better if you present, during your interviews, the values that you can bring to the company. Then that will have a lot more weight rather than just focusing on the experience itself or the tenure itself. So
Yeah.
that's what I presented, and I'm really glad. I got hired for
Mm.
the position. Um, it was a time crunch, Ray. To be
Mm.
honest, it was a time crunch to process my passport.
Yeah.
I only had one valid ID, which was my humid ID. and it got lost around that time.
Oh my goodness.
It got lost. I don't have any, I don't have any other valid IDs. And I think I just got lucky. Maybe um, God was helping me along the way as well. Because at one point when I tried to process my SSS ID, maybe a few days or a few weeks after that, someone messaged me. They found my humid
Oh.
ID.
So it was really for
Um,
you. It's destined to be
yeah,
for you.
that was very crazy. I mean, I lost my ID. I forgot where I lost it. But someone found the ID somewhere. I think that was at 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀 because I used to send
Oh,
money
okay.
back home at 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙀𝙀𝙀. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to drop their name in this interview, but yeah, someone found my ID at 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙀𝙀 and then told me, Van, I think you lost your ID. And that changed everything. So it
Oh my
became a lot
gosh.
easier for me to process my passport because I now have a valid ID, even if, I think the requirement was one valid ID and then some supporting IDs
Yeah.
when you're getting your passport. So
Yeah.
I took the fastest route, expedited processing for the passport. It still took some time.
Mm.
Um, we did the um, visa interview at a
Mm.
time when Trump was, I don't know what's the
Banning
term.
the I
Um,
don't know what else, but maybe he was like very not very
they were
in
very strict.
favor, not very in favor of
Yeah, they were very
people coming
strict.
from other countries, something like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that was really a challenge.
Mm.
The visa we were trying to apply for was B1,
Mm.
um, B1, B2,
Bananas and pajamas.
just like my.
Is it like
I
a
think B1 was
tourist
for
or
business,
a
and then
business?
B2 was for
Okay.
tourists.
Mm.
Yes, so something like that. Um, and my first interview for the visa application, there's no other place for you to get your visa application for US, but to go to Manila. So we
Mm.
went to Manila, and our first try, we flopped. So
Oh.
we all got denied,
Oh,
except
okay.
for our manager. And I think it has something to do with the position, especially when you're
Mm.
applying for a visa, especially if it's a business. If it's a
Mm.
business purpose,
Mm.
I think they will look at your position at the company and try to evaluate if if it's really needed for this company to send this person. Our
Mm.
manager got approved most likely because she's a
She's a
manager,
manager,
right?
yeah.
And she has more um, weight compared to, let's say, for me as a training specialist. I had to do a
Mm.
lot of explaining in
Yeah.
front of the um, consul. I think, yeah, that's what we call that person, consul. It's very scary.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of windows, and you don't know um, which window you will be assigned. So
Mm.
we flopped our first try. We tried again after a few months, and
Mm.
fortunately, we got approved.
Oh.
Um, we booked our flights, and the initial goal was not to um, focus 100% in training because it's
Mm.
just a short period.
Okay.
Um, my stay there was around less than 2 weeks.
Oh,
My
okay.
counterparts who are handling other line of business, I think theirs was just 1 week,
Mm.
because we also have other agents working in the US.
Mm.
And our initial goal is, really get to know the people that we will be working with
Mm.
um, in the company, knowing the ins and outs, who's who. I think that
Mm.
was the most important part of the trip. Even if we've created our own training plan on
Mm.
what to do on day 1, day 2, day 3,
Mm.
up to the succeeding days. The first goal is to really make people feel comfortable working
Mm.
with you,
Mm.
and I think that was a great initiative that was instructed to us. Aside from
Yeah.
collecting information about the product, because the product are heavy equipment. Heavy equipment, yeah. It's a heavy equipment used by commercial stores.
Mm.
So while we can find the same products here in the Philippines, um, we don't have that same equipment in the stores here in the Philippines. So there are other competitor brands, but most of our customers are within US and a little bit on the Latin America side. So we don't really have, we don't really have an actual product that we can try to experiment, play around to know the different parts. So that was a
You can't
challenging role
bring
for us.
them.
We can't bring an equipment that weighs maybe 1 ton. So
Yeah.
all we have to do is to take a lot of pictures, get to know the people that we'll be working with, ask a lot of questions, get to experience how their day-to-day tasks will look like, and then take it from there. So
Yeah.
learning never stops at the end of that trip. It was
True.
just the beginning, and the group is, it's continuously learning from all the different products, all the different parts of the equipment.
Yeah, that's nice. And the first thing that you mentioned, especially about during your interview, I think that's really one of the interesting insights that you've mentioned as well. Especially nowadays that, when you go to an interview, if you don't prepare, you will just really say, like, outline your achievements and everything like that. And you really touched on
Yeah.
like providing value and what you can contribute to the company, which you did. To everyone who is watching right now, make sure to comment below any takeaways or lessons that you've had so far while watching this video. Please continue to watch until the end because we're going to have an ebook giveaway for you. But for now, we're going to have a quick commercial break. So don't go away. We'll be back in a jiffy. So it's time for our ebook giveaway. I'm giving away 3 copies of call center interview questions and sample answers plus insider tips ebook. All you have to do is comment your name, your username, or any name I can identify you with. Plus another thing, very important, you have to comment your key takeaway or the lesson that you've learned from this video. At least just one. I'm sure you've learned so much already at this point of our conversation. And then I'm gonna choose 3 winners, which I'm going to announce on my Facebook page and my YouTube community page. So make sure you comment now before 6 p.m. tomorrow. We will close our giveaway as well, but you can still continue watching this episode as well as our previous episodes. All right, we're back to our episode with Ivan. Before we continue our episode and ask some more questions, let's have a quick icebreaker in the form of fast talk questions. So Ivan, you know how this works. Let's begin. Day shift or night shift?
I've been in the industry for the past 10 years. Night shift.
Night shift.
And I'll continue loving night shift.
Okay. Holiday off or double pay?
Holiday off.
Office or work from home?
Office. But currently, I think I'm enjoying work from home.
Yeah. Cash or GC?
GC.
Oh. Late or absent?
Late.
Late. OT before shift or OT after shift?
Before shift. I'll go for that.
Coffee or soda?
Coffee. Coffee.
Customer service or sales?
Sales makes a lot of money, but I've been with the customer service for the longest time, so I'll go for customer service.
Yeah. Voice or non-voice?
Voice, of course.
Team drinking or team eating?
I stopped drinking for quite some time, so I'll go for team eating.
Wow, good for you. And our last fast talk question, would you rather have a terrible boss but a great job or a great boss but a terrible job?
I'll go for the great job, terrible boss, and I think I'll need to explain this.
Okay.
Because sometimes
Okay.
our perception or initial perception is actually completely different as to the actual thing that's going on. So
Okay.
your terrible boss is someone that you can transform into, into a better person.
Wow,
So
that's
go for the
nice.
better job even if you have a terrible boss.
Wow.
Because initially you may think this person is terrible, but in reality, they are not really terrible. So there are just some factors, that makes them look like they're terrible.
Wow, I'm so proud of you. That's such a nice way to put it, actually. And you're very lucky to be
Yeah.
one of the people who were able to explain your answer. But anyway, thanks for participating.
I
Let's
had to.
continue
I had to
our
do that.
conversation. Yeah, for sure. And you've explained it
Thank
really
you.
well. And in terms of, let's say, work-life balance, you've been working in the industry for a long time. How do you keep yourself sane outside of work?
So, um, it's a strategy that I've been doing
Mm.
for the longest time,
Ooh.
and some people, some people think it's a lot easier if you do work life integration.
Okay.
Some folks do that. They do work life integration, and some folks strictly follow the work life balance.
Okay.
And I consider myself as someone who gravitates towards work life balance, um, because we work to live. We do not live to work.
Mm.
I think that's what the French people used to say all the time. So
Okay.
we work to live. We do not live to work,
Mm. Makes sense.
and it plays a very important role in terms of time management.
Okay.
Um, when you're working at a high stress environment, um, which is something that's quite common to maybe all of our viewers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if it's a voice account, it's very queuing. They
True.
get to deal with a lot of complaints, maybe coming from
Yeah.
customers or issues with the system. Um, you leave that when you step out of the office. So you
Mm.
leave all of those the moment you step out of the office, and start enjoying your life the moment you get home, when you meet your friends or parents. But most importantly, you avoid activities that will cause a different level of stress. When
Mm.
I say that will cause different level of stress, um, vices, drinking after your shift, that's
Mm.
not literally helping. That's actually pulling you down because
Mm.
of the amount of stress your body, experiences when you drink alcohol. Maybe moderately, it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine, but not all the time because you are compromising your health in the long run. You know, a long time ago, every weekend we go out, we
I
party.
know,
I used to
right?
do that. Um,
I mean,
Tanduay is a common thing.
I mean, we're not
Tanduay
innocent
without
here,
chaser.
of course. We
We're not
started our
innocent
years
here. We're
like
not trying
that.
to, you know, all throughout those years, we've learned how to get drunk and how to get uh, wasted. And that's not really doing anything good in your body.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
drinking is okay. I mean, you can drink after your shift, but drinking too much is a completely different topic. So
yeah.
that's how I manage, my um, work and life uh, for the past 10 years. One trick I've learned since I've been in the graveyard shift for the longest
Mm.
time is that sleeping at night is really beneficial for your health. And
Mm.
for someone who's working at a graveyard shift, it's a lot difficult, because you're
Yes.
accustomed to um, sleeping in the morning and awake at night. And what I do on weekends or during my rest day is that after my last, work shift
Mm.
for that week, I try to sleep for 2 hours in the
Mm.
morning, wake
Okay.
up, and then adjust my body so that I can sleep at night, which makes me feel a lot way better when I wake
Mm.
up the next morning. So
Oh.
most of you will always have a 2-day week off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for some folks whose schedules keeps on changing, so we can't
Yeah.
really do anything about that.
Yeah, that's
That's what
true.
I do. So I adjust my sleeping pattern when it's weekend, so that I can sleep at night and then recuperate. Whatever
Wow.
whatever I've lost. Um,
Yeah, that's a really great advice though, because I know there are a lot of viewers who are asking me before, like, how do you manage working at night? How do you manage like different schedules, or how did you manage to stay in the industry for so long? I think, like you said, it's just a matter of making your own strategy and doing
yeah,
whatever works for you that will not destroy you at the end of the day. And can I just say I'm
Absolutely.
super like proud because you've matured so much since we both started or since we've met in our first company. I think,
I got old.
yeah, well, we all do. So
Well, it's part of the
I think
process.
that,
Although Rhea, you never aged a day. I think you never
wow.
aged a day. Um, you were so thin back then. I think
Yeah.
you're glowing. Glow
Oh,
up.
thank you. Glow up.
Glow up.
Glow. What was that? Like trending something on the net, like how it's been and how it's going, something like that. Maybe we should post
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but thank you, Ivan. I mean, I'm so. I'm really like genuinely like amazed because of the things that you're saying now. Maybe because we haven't had this conversation before and we were like so
For the
young
longest
before.
time.
Yeah, and then we just go to
Yeah.
the office and I'm not sure, but there were like times in the office before that we were just complaining because we're so tired, and then okay, let's go out
Yeah.
after. And then now I think that we've changed our, mindset and the way we think about life. So, oh my gosh, kudos.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
thank you for sharing. And of course,
Thank
before
you.
we end this, I have a very important question, which is, nowadays, of course, a lot of people are looking for jobs, but then because of, let's say, a lot of employees getting laid off and businesses not hiring, although there are still some businesses that, or companies that are hiring, some people may say, I'll just get the first job that I can get and I won't be choosy anymore. But I also want to really put it out there that even though we are in a pandemic, we still can choose, the company where we will work because that really will determine our lifestyle for the next few months. So, um, you've moved from one company to another, but you've stayed relatively longer. What do you think should an applicant look for or consider when choosing for which company to apply to? What were
Well,
your
there.
like decision makers or triggers before?
For someone like me,
Mm.
who grew up in a financially disadvantaged situation, the top priority that I have, since I'm supporting my parents, I'm supporting myself. I have to provide for what I have here,
Mm-hmm.
um, my rent, all other expenses, aside from sending money at home. So
Yeah.
the financial side will always be the top priority for me
Okay.
as an applicant. And I
Mm.
think, there are different cases you'll have to encounter, or
Yeah.
you'll have to think about, rather, um, in making these decisions. Unless if you're someone, who's living in their parents' bedroom or who's living in their parents' living room. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's perfectly okay to, you know, to get a job, for you to gain experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to talk about when I try to give advice to people.
Mm.
Especially if you're starting in the industry, offers may not be that great. And
Yeah.
let's be honest with that.
Yeah.
When it's a entry level job, most of the time they will offer you 15,000
Yeah. Or even
for
small,
people with no
smaller than that.
experience, or even
Yeah.
smaller than that. I mean, that's the same offer. Folks like us had 10 years, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, I think they
Yeah.
should change that. Um,
True.
I don't know. We can't really force companies to do that unless if everyone starts declining, starts
Yeah.
declining the offer. So,
Yeah. True.
um, for applicants, I think, if you are currently working right now, bank on that experience,
Mm.
um, gain tenure, because
Okay.
most of the time that's what companies look for. If you keep on jumping from one company to another with less than 1 year of experience, most of the time they decline you.
Mm.
Although some companies don't do that, as long as you can explain the situation
Yeah.
behind your transition from one company
Yeah.
to another, um, then it's perfectly fine. You know, what I tell people is, whatever your goal in life is, I think it's important that we break the stigma against people who are call center hoppers. We have
Mhm.
that. We
Yeah.
have folks who are hopping from one industry to another,
Yeah.
because there are some folks who are hopping because they're trying to find the best offer that they can get, and
Mhm.
we cannot blame them for that. Um, if they think their priority is financial, then they will have to find the best opportunity they can get. That's why they move from one company to another because they get better offers from other industries. Um, Second is the what's that? The benefits that the company provide. Um, because at the end of the day, even if your pay isn't that great, as long as the benefits are good or meets your
Yeah.
expectations, then some folks they do take that. I've encountered some people who prioritize the benefits because they have kids, and we
Yeah.
can't blame
True.
them if they prioritize benefits over pay.
Yeah.
And that plays a certain role in the dynamics of how much you get paid or whatnot. So
Right.
uh, I think that's what we should focus on, especially for applicants who are moving from one industry to uh, another. Um, they should try to think about their priorities in life. So
Mm.
if you are someone who's trying to prioritize the income,
Yeah.
then you'll have to consider your experience, the value you bring to the company before asking for that income grade or income
Mm.
range. Because at the end of the day, the company will ask you, you don't have any BPO experience, but you're demanding this much, from
Mm.
us. So what are we getting from? What are we getting from you? So
Mm.
what can you give us so that we can pay that in return? Um,
Yeah.
you have the benefits. I won't gravitate towards culture
Mm.
um, because culture is something that you can change within the
Mm.
company. So there's no such thing as a fixed company culture because for me, the culture of a company depends on the
Yeah.
collective behavior
Of the
of the
people inside.
employees.
True. True.
It's not something that the management can what's that? It's not something that the management can demand
Yes.
from the employees. It's something that comes naturally. So it's a collective decision within
Yes.
that company uh, in building that culture. Some
Right.
folks say they're from a very toxic environment. Then
Mm.
the question is, what did you do to to address
The
that
toxicity.
environment you're from? Did you try
Yeah.
to reach out to your managers, to your colleagues, help them realize that it's actually a bad environment, and we
Yeah.
might want to change that.
Or maybe you're
So
the one who are contributing to that toxic environment. You never know for yourself unless you're self-aware, right?
absolutely, that is correct. Um, and for folks who are trying to move, let's say, to a different industry that's
Mm.
that's completely different from what they have, I think my best advice is don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone.
Perfect.
Um,
Yeah.
the moment you're comfortable in a certain position, the
Mm.
more it becomes obvious that you're not doing a great job because you're becoming comfortable with
Mm.
with what you're doing. You're not
Okay.
challenging yourself. At the end of the day, what matters is the experience you're getting,
Yes.
um, and the learning you're getting from what you're doing. So you're not learning if you're not doing something new. I think
Yes.
Einstein said that. I'm not sure whoever said that. Or you're not learning if you're not making any mistakes. I think
Yeah,
that was
that's
the
right.
quote. So um, try to learn something new. At the end of the day, the industry will continue to change.
True.
Um, Decades ago, customer service didn't exist. Most people were working on traditional jobs,
Mm.
industrial jobs, and that's the environment I came from. My
Mm.
parents used to work in a chemical plant. When
Mm.
globalization hit the country, they lost their jobs since they never tried learning something new. They got
Oh.
stuck with what they know. The
Yeah.
industry changed.
Makes sense.
Um, a lot of jobs were created mostly on the IT side. A lot of
Mm.
people got left, although some people tried to learn how it works and got the job. Um, and it's very important for us to be flexible, be open
Yes.
to learning, so that we can adjust to the fast
Yeah.
changing environment we're
Especially in the
in.
BPO. Yes, very
That's
fast
correct. And I'd
changing.
like to mention one of my trainees.
Mm.
He was a grandfather. I'm not sure if you remember him. I think he was 70 years old.
Yeah, I remember
60?
him.
Yeah.
I remember him.
Yes, we've had those trainees who
Mhm.
are, very flexible. They're always eager to learn.
True.
Um, and they never get left behind
I think it was
because
Val.
of that.
Was it Val?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I also have a female trainee. I forgot her
Mhm.
name. But yes, same situation. I think she was around 50 plus, 60, but
Mhm.
always looking elegant and pristine when
Yes.
coming in the, when coming into the room. So they never get left behind because they
Yeah.
always try to learn something new.
You
So
always
try
have
to
the
learn something
beginner
new.
mindset, but even if they've had like years of experience, they come in there and they're still eager to learn, which is a really nice
Absolutely.
asset to have. Wow, those are really really good points from you, Ivan. I think it's nice that you also mentioned about call center hopping. I've been meaning to ask some of our guests, but I just forgot to ask. But it's nice that you
Mhm.
actually brought it up. And sometimes we see it as a really bad thing to do. It can affect your
Yeah.
employment, but then sometimes you also can't blame employees because they're also looking for the best company for them. But then hopefully, you learn something. You learn something from it, and look for maybe sometimes it's not like you're looking for the company, but it just happens when you're there. You never really know if it's the best one for you or the right one for you
Yeah.
until you really stick it out a little bit longer and say that, yeah, this is where I should be. This is where I should belong, because you will not know if you're just there for like a few weeks or for a month, diba? So how can you say this is the best for me, or like I don't like
Right.
this if it's just 1 month. So sometimes you
You
just
get
have
to
to
weigh
be
the benefits,
patient.
right?
Yeah.
You get to weigh the pros and cons of working.
True.
I mean, there's no perfect working environment.
That's
Companies
true.
try to be, try to present what's best for their employees, but
Mhm.
there's always that biased judgment coming from people. People are
Right.
judgmental. We try to we try to make generalizations. We try to make assumptions and
Right.
forego of the proper way of thinking about it
Mhm.
logically. Um, Sorry, Ray, just to bring up as well, one advice that I'd like to share to
Yeah, go ahead.
new hires. One last advice, and then you can cut me off after
No, of
this.
course, go ahead. Sure.
So the value of expanding your network
Mhm.
is extremely important when you're working, regardless of the industry you're in.
Okay.
Because have any if you have any career goals in the future, that network will always be there to present opportunities for you. When I
Mhm.
say network, what I mean is the people you know. I'm not talking about MLM or
Networking.
multi-level marketing. That's a
Yes.
different thing. Um, the network I'm talking about are the people you know professionally, and the people who can help you if the need arises, or the
Mhm.
people you can help if the need arises. So let's
Mhm.
say if you're an agent and your network are a group of agents only, then the only
Mhm.
thing you will learn from them are possible companies who are opening, offering better salaries. But if you are someone who network outside of your current circle, I think
Okay.
there's a topic in LinkedIn about that. Your
Uh-huh.
third degree connections, second degree connections, and
Yes.
first degree connections, right?
Yes.
It's important that you network out, you branch out, try to meet people, try to build relationships with people. Um, what's that? Higher, who has a higher level in
Yeah.
terms of
More
job description.
experienced than you
Yes,
are. Yeah.
because knowing that network, they help you understand the different types of learning
True.
they've had for the longest time, skills
Yeah.
they've learned, and
Exactly.
sticking within, isolating yourself in that bubble of first degree connections won't help you,
Mm.
because they offer the same thing that you know. So
Yeah.
that's what I'd like. share, and then we can end this.
That's
Because I'm
perfect. I
taking
think
too
that's
much of your
a
time.
that's okay. That's a perfect, point to end this conversation. I think it's really important that we just get rid of the box that we're in and,
Right.
go out of our comfort zone, explore other opportunities like what you said. There's still so much to learn in this industry. And even when you're just starting, you should also already have that mindset that one day I will branch out there, once I am already comfortable with this position. You
Yes.
can definitely think of trying something else within the industry because for sure there's something out there for you. So, well, thank you so much, Ivan, for your time. I really, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it and all of the insights that you've shared to our viewers. For sure, you've learned so much. If you're watching this video, not forget to comment below your takeaway or your lessons learned from this entire conversation, and you'll get to win one of the copies of my ebook. So that's it for our episode for today. We hope to see you on our next episode. And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. Take care. And bye. My
Thank you. Bye bye.
hand.